I have been eating a lot of cheese lately, as you can imagine, and the other day my parents were coming around and I had the cheese but not crackers. Now that isn't often the case, is it? Normally it's the other way around. So I thought, okay, I better educate myself in the cracker territory and figure out how to do something that is lovely and obviously handmade and a little bit special, but really, really not something I have to wait for ages to make. So these are unleavened crackers, which means that you don't have to add yeast. You don't have to sit around for, 3 hours while they rise. It's kind of good to go in 10 minutes and they're in the oven, kind of crackers that I like. They do get these beautiful little air pockets in there though, and that's all about not over mixing the cracker. So in the same way that you don't over mix muffins, so that you can have some air pockets and some ruggedness in there so that it manages to have some variation in its rising, it's the same idea with crackers. All right, let's get them happening. 2 cups of flour. I'm going to go for spelt because, well, I kind of always do. so some spelt, a teaspoon of baking powder. Now the cheesy part of these cheesy, smoky rosemary crackers is based on nutritional yeast. That goes in. Smoked salt, the Himalayan smoked salt, and actually I'll give that a quick stir. You can already smell the deliciousness of this with that smoked salt and the cheesiness of the nutritional yeast. Oil goes in first. Now, in the same way that if we were using butter into a pastry and you want to have kind of chunks of butter in pastry so that it expands at different rates, it's the same idea with the olive oil. You almost want to leave little globules of olive oil. So it comes together in the same way that pastry does, but you hold it back at that crumbly kind of stage. Okay, now we can add our rosemary. If you're going to add any harder herbs, just make sure that you don't make them too big. Like, I've done fennel seeds and stuff like that, and that works. But I just think that if you put, like pepper that's really coarsely ground, when you put it through the pasta roller, and you don't have to put it through the pasta roller, but that's part of the ease of these crackers, it tends to tear a little bit. So just keep that in mind. Whereas I think the rosemary being a little bit softer still gives you those beautiful jutty outy bits, which is what we want. Well, not to mention the deliciousness. Such a great smell. All right, let's throw that around. All right, water. Even when I have a recipe for pastry or for, in this case, crackers, I never add all of the water that is suggested to add. I don't know if that's an insight into my psychology, but I just want to know that it's not going to be too much, because you don't want this to be, it's not a cake batter. You really just want it to just kind of come together. And then we'll use our hands to squash it, the last part anyway. It almost feels like when you're making pasta, you know? All right. Now, if you don't have a pasta machine, don't worry about it, because you just pop it between 2 pieces of baking paper with a rolling pin and it'll do the same thing. This is just way easier and faster. Okay, you can see that that's sticking together, obviously, but there's a variation in the strata. The the substrata there. You know, you can see variation in the way that the flour's holding on to the oil in patches. That's what you want. Don't stress if this is a bit flaky. It's okay, because that's what we want with crackers. If they're too perfect, you're not going to get those beautiful kind of holes that rise up. You're going to break this apart anyway once you've baked it. Well, you don't have to, but you can. Now, one mistake I always make based on impatience, again, little insight into my psychology there, is that I tend to rush when I get to the finer. So I'm on a 4 on my pasta machine now. Don't go too fast when you're doing the finer roll so that it doesn't fall apart. Now you can get an idea, because that's a bit thinner. You can see that there's a variation in it. Let's do our first batch. Get those in the oven. They don't need anything else. If you wanted to, you could put some more salt, but because I've already put the salt inside, I'm not going to add too much to the top. I'm really relying on the fact that rosemary is going to pop through when it gets baked, and that'll give it that gnarly kind of homemade look. No one is going to ask you, where did you get those? Which shop did you get those? Believe me, they're going to know that you made them at home. Right, they're looking good, nice and crispy. I have just left them to cool on a cooling rack, because you don't want a soggy cracker, do you? But then just break them as you see fit, so that we can put some nice shards together. They are like shards, aren't they? That's a good choice of words. Okay. Oh, I've hidden my knife. Come out of there so that we can have some cheese. They look gnarly, don't they? See, I told you nobody's going to say to you, hey, which shop did you get those from? Right. Good, good. Good sound. And you know, they're sturdy, because how many times have you gone to put cheese or some kind of spread onto one of those wafery kind of crackers, and the whole thing just disintegrates in your hand? There's nothing more frustrating. Oh, you should subscribe.